One person is dead after a shooting overnight in Rogers. The shooting happened just after midnight early this morning. Rogers police received multiple calls about the shooting, which happened on South B Street. When they got to the scene, the department says they found a man who had been shot. He was rushed to a nearby hospital where he died. The name of the victim has not been released, and Rogers police says the incident is isolated and there is no threat to the public. Overseas tonight, the fighting between Russia and Ukraine has escalated days before Saudi Arabia hosts a meeting between Ukraine and the U.S. A latest round of Russian strikes on Ukraine have killed at least 20 people. The attacks come just days after the U.S. suspended military and intelligence to Ukraine. CBS's Imtiaz Tiab has the latest.
This residential building was gutted in the attack, which also saw several vehicles torched and left a trail of smoldering debris, following the wave of Russian drone and ballistic missile strikes on the town of Dobropilya in the eastern Kharkiv region. At least 25 people were killed and many more were wounded.
Мы заложники данной ситуации. В данный момент.
We are all hostages of this situation, this local resident said. We can't do anything. Civilians are dying. The southern port city of Odessa was also targeted overnight. The intense wave of Kremlin attacks came just 24 hours after the U.S. suspended some satellite imagery and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. And only days after the Trump administration announced it had halted billions in weapon shipments to the country. A rapid and dramatic shift in U.S. support for the war that had one Ukrainian military commander say they were now left to fight blind. Imtiaz Tiab, CBS News, Warsaw.
The White House unveils a stopgap measure to keep the government funded. The bill could avert a looming shutdown, but there are challenges ahead. Nicole Killian reports.
House Republicans unveiled a spending bill aimed at heading off a federal government shutdown. The 99-page legislation would provide a slight boost to defense programs and cut non-defense spending below 2024 budget year levels. The measure, which faces objections from some Democrats, would keep the government funded through September. On his social media site, President Trump urged Republicans to vote yes for the bill. Meanwhile, a group of labor unions is taking action to block Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from gaining access to millions of American Social Security data. A motion filed late Friday asks a federal court for an emergency order to stop DOJ from tapping into the sensitive information. In Washington Saturday, activists held a Don't Abandon Ukraine rally. This week, Senate Intelligence Vice Chair Mark Warner spoke about the Trump administration's move to end some intelligence sharing with Ukraine.
But if we are not sharing intelligence with Ukraine, which the CIA director said is the case, then they're doing huge damage to Ukraine's chances to defend itself.
And Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei spoke out after Trump said he sent a letter offering to negotiate a nuclear deal with the Islamic Republic.
I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other, but the other will solve the problem.
In a speech in Tehran, Khamenei accused the U.S. of bullying tactics. Nicole Killian, CBS News, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Pope Francis remains in the hospital where he is being treated for double pneumonia. The Vatican says the Pope is still recovering as he undergoes both respiratory and physical therapy. Many still gathering outside the hospital every day, awaiting good news. Doctors, however, say that they would have hoped to see improvement from Francis as he enters his fourth week at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. While he has stabilized, they warned that he was increasingly at risk of secondary infections the longer he remains hospitalized. And a new law in Arkansas aims to educate students about firearm safety. But what exactly will that education look like? Jose Carranza spoke with lawmakers and the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission to find out.
Firearm safety will be taught in schools with the signing of Act 229 into law. House Representative Scott Richardson was the lead sponsor of the bill. He explains the idea came about when he considered the diversity of his community in Bentonville, Rogers, and Cave Springs.
Oftentimes they come from a variety of backgrounds that may or may not have had opportunities to be exposed to firearms in the home.
It was the topic of a conversation Richardson had with his neighbors last summer.
All of our children play together and invade whatever home happens to be the play of the day. And in that process, they may go into a neighbor's home and discover that unsecured firearm. And how would they react?
The Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and the Department of Education will develop the safety instruction. Game and Fish has experience teaching firearm safety through its recreational shooting division, placing experts at firing ranges statewide. But spokesperson Trey Reed says their most significant involvement in firearm safety is through hunter education.
We've had hunter education in Arkansas for 45 years probably now. It has been mandatory. It's mandatory for anybody born after 1968. You have to have it in order to get a hunting license.
Reed believes the requirements in the act will make the instruction simpler than the 10-hour hunter education course.
This is going to be really basic. I mean, basically a firearm safety version of stop, drop, and roll.
Richardson emphasized the focus is on safety, not firearm use. Instruction will begin in the 2025-26 school year. Covering news where you live, Jose Carranza, 5 News.
Well, it's time to spring ahead. The clock moves an hour ahead on Sunday for daylight saving time. And one lawmaker in the state of Arkansas is proposing an end to daylight saving time. 5 News reporter Parker Abels met with him and a local doctor to see why they believe it's time for the change to end.
House Bill 1069 is an attempt to put Arkansas on standard time year-round.
On Wednesday, State Representative Stephen Meeks will propose a bill to end daylight saving time altogether.
I know a lot of people like the illusion of that extra hour of daylight in the evening, but the problem is daylight savings time forces all of us to get up an hour earlier, but we don't go to bed an hour earlier.
Dr. Upton Siddons, a physician in Greenwood, says studies show why it could be beneficial.
Car accidents, heart attacks, strokes, all of these things tend to spike in the few days after daylight savings time spring forward.
He explains why these spikes happen.
Our bodies are very much in tune with the level of light and temperature. And even though we have our 24-hour clocks that, mechanically tell us what time it is, our body is really very in sync with the sort of the diurnal rhythms of day and night, which change throughout the day, in between the solstices.
Representative Meeks says it's even affecting our schools.
I've heard from numerous teachers who have said they can see it in the, in their students, because their students, when we make that jump to daylight saving time, they're coming in the morning, they are more tired. And of course, that leads to poor academic performance.
However, this isn't Meeks' first attempt at ending daylight saving time, as he proposed a similar bill in 2023. But this time, he's more prepared.
I filed the bill early. It's given me time to visit more with my colleagues about it. And I've picked up several co-sponsors this go around where I didn't have that before. I've got a senator who's already lined up, ready to carry the bill for me in the Senate should I get it out of the House. I'm getting emails from people all over the state saying that they support it.
Covering news where you live, Parker Abels, 5 News.
Pea Ridge National Military Park hosted an event today marking the 163rd anniversary of the Battle of Pea Ridge, and some volunteers took the opportunity to share how the lessons learned from that pivotal moment in history continue to resonate more than a century later.
The reason we should care about that today is this comes back and you can actually see what happens when things move to the point to where you stop talking and you start shooting at each other.
The Battle of Pea Ridge was fought on March 7th and 8th in 1862 by over 23,000 Union and Confederate soldiers. At Saturday's 163rd anniversary event, visitors watched on as volunteers performed various reenactments.
We have our cannon, which is a 6-pound cannon, and then we have a 12-pound cannon from Fort Smith. We also have our small arms firing, so our rifles, and look at uniforms. All of our uniforms are historically correct, from buttons to badges.
The park says the battle was the largest fought west of the Mississippi River and was a major turning point in helping Union forces maintain physical control of the state of Missouri.
It just kind of plays into the whole atmosphere of Northwest Arkansas and what makes Northwest Arkansas what we are. Having this as part of our history and knowledge.
On the gloomy Saturday morning, park volunteer Jim Craig says it's important to remember those lost and educate future generations of what happened on the battlefield.
Not only to honor the veterans who were here, because Union or Confederate, these were Americans. I had two ancestors who were actually here at the battle right there, and they could have been me, to be honest with you. I'm just born later. So it is important for us to learn. It's important for us to teach our children.
The park says they are open almost every day of the year for those who want to enjoy the more than 4,000 acres of Northwest Arkansas history. Arkansas Game and Fish wrapping up the 2024-2025 Family and Community Fishing Program's winter trout angling opportunities. This year, they provided about 57,000 rainbow trout to 40 locations. The Jim Heinkel Spring River State Fish Hatchery sent truckloads of trout to ponds in Cabot, Pine Bluff, Little Rock, Conway, Maumelle, Bentonville, and Springdale.
And really with this put and take limited wintertime seasonal fishery, I mean, it's really just another opportunity for Arkansans to get engaged with the outdoors, make a connection to nature. And, it's what we're all about, is offering opportunities to people to care about the natural world. The more connected you are to it, the more you care about it.
That hatchery, by the way, is the only state-owned cold water trout facility. It is responsible for stocking all family and community fishing program locations.